This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Susie Garrett. Brought to you by...
Sailing through the heart of historic cities and landscapes on a river, you get close to iconic landmarks, to local life, to cultural treasures. Viking River Cruises, exploring the world in comfort.
Presidential news conference. President Obama spent the afternoon addressing a number of issues important to both business and the American people, from healthcare to the Fed to the government surveillance program.
Donnybrook in aisle 6, the battle between Penney's board, its CEO, and one of its biggest shareholders boils over in public. Is this kind of open boardroom warfare ever good for shareholders?
Bringing jobs home. More companies are moving their overseas operations back to the U.S. But it's not just workers who benefit. We'll show you who else is reaping the rewards as we wrap up our series, Made in America. All that and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Friday, August 9th.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Tyler Matheson, along with Sue Herrera. Susie Garrett has the night off. In a far-reaching press conference today, his first in more than 3 months, President Obama took questions and gave answers on a number of topics critically important to American business. He tackled everything from health care reform and the possibility of a government shutdown to immigration, privacy, and whom he might choose as the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. Eamon Javers was in the room and has our report. Eamon?
Good evening, Tyler. Well, the president addressed a series of issues, as you say, in his press conference today. He started off by saying that he doesn't think that the leaker from the NSA, Edward Snowden, is a patriot. Nonetheless, the president announced a series of reforms that he'd like to implement in U.S. intelligence gathering. Here's how the president described what he'd like to do.
We can and must be more transparent. So I've directed the intelligence community to make public as much information about these programs as possible. We've already declassified unprecedented information about the NSA, but we can go further.
And asked about who he's going to pick for the next chairman of the Federal Reserve, the president said he didn't want to tip his hand who he's going to pick, but he did say that he's got 2 very good candidates. And he also sort of explained why it is that the White House seems to have been defending Larry Summers in public in recent days. Take a listen.
The perception that Mr. Summers might have an inside track simply had to do with a bunch of attacks that I was hearing on Mr. Summers preemptively, which is sort of a standard Washington exercise, that I don't like.
So, Tyler, obviously this is very personal for the president. He's got a relationship with Larry Summers. He didn't like to see the piling on, so that might explain some of the leaks that we saw over the past couple of weeks, explaining that Larry Summers might be the front runner for the job. The president insisting, however, today that he has not picked a candidate just yet.
He talked a little bit today about the implementation of Obamacare, the health care reform, and the possibility that a government shutdown might be used as a weapon in that funding battle. Give us some thoughts on that, Eamon.
Well, obviously, he said that if you implement something as big as Obamacare, as he calls it now, it's going to have some glitches. And he was trying to prepare people to expect that there are going to be some glitches here. Nonetheless, he said that he doesn't like the politics here on the Republican side of threatening a government shutdown over the issue of Obamacare. He tried to position this as Republicans threatening to shut down the government in order to block 30 million Americans from getting access to health care. That, he said, is simply a bad idea.
Eamon Javers, thank you very much.
You bet.
A development late today in the long-running patent battle pitting Apple and Samsung over smartphone technology. This is what we know now. The International Trade Commission, a quasi-judicial federal agency, issued a mixed ruling banning the import of some Samsung devices that infringe on 2 Apple patents, but found no violation on 4 other Apple patents.
Shares of the smartphone maker BlackBerry got a big boost today on a report the company is considering going private. The CEO and board are reportedly discussing the idea because it would give them time to fix the company's problems out of the public view. But some analysts remain skeptical that such a deal is likely to happen. There was no comment from the company. The stock finished the day, though, up almost 6%.
And on Wall Street, investors found little reason to buy as the Dow snaps its 6-week win streak, closing at a 1-month low. And in typical Friday fashion, volume was light, but not just today, all week long, logging the lowest volume week since August of 2006. In the end, the Dow closed down 72 points to 15,425. The S&P fell 6, and the Nasdaq was off by 6 points.
The Federal Communications Commission is getting involved in the Time Warner-CBS dispute. The agency is urging the two parties to resolve the dispute as soon as possible and that it's ready to act if this dispute continues. Separately, Time Warner Cable customers have filed a class action lawsuit against the cable operator in Milwaukee. The suit seeks unspecified damages for breach of contract and compensation for every customer in southeast Wisconsin. They're going to miss the Packer game. That's one reason why the suit was filed. Well, one stock that floated down with the market today was Penney. Its shares slid nearly 6% as an increasingly nasty spat between its largest shareholder and the company's board bubbled over in public once again. Activist investor Bill Ackman, whose Pershing Square management holds nearly 18% of Penney, today sent his second public letter in 2 days to directors, this one calling for the ouster of company chairman Tom Engabus and an accelerated search for a new CEO. Ackman's letter charged that personnel decisions were being made inappropriately, that he and other board members were being frozen out, and that vendors had told him privately, now publicly, that they were worried that Penney was being too optimistic in buying inventory. Penney's chairman called Ackman's comments, quote, misleading, inaccurate, and counterproductive. Whatever. It's the sort of public Donnybrook you rarely see in American business, but have seen more of in recent weeks. And here to discuss what happens when companies fight among themselves or fight with each other is Yale School of Management Senior Associate Dean Jeffrey Sonnenfeld. Jeff, great to see you again.
It's great to see you, Tyler.
You know, whenever I see this kind of open boardroom warfare break out, and it doesn't happen all that often, is it ever good for shareholders, or should I run the heck away?
It's not good for shareholders, and you see a little bit of a fleeting pop yesterday, Tyler, that quickly disappeared because people thought, well, maybe there's some pending news that's going to be good news about some major announcement of a change coming. But no, when you have this kind of disillusion, we saw it at the old HP board, where Tom Perkins and a guy named Jay Keyworth went to war with their own board, and that kind of self-immolation was very bad for all parties. You've seen it at Motorola in the past, and it's quite destructive. In this case, we have a historic breach of a duty of loyalty, where Bill Ackman, as an independent or an outside investor, he can say what he wants. As a board member, he has to represent the full board. Revealing confidences like this and attacking his own board like this is a breakdown in the trust on the board, and of course putting out confidential strategic information is a big no-no, and this board should probably move to have him removed. 16% is not a controlling interest.
You know, it also comes, Jeff, with the new CEO only being on the job for 4 months and being responsible for turning around a company that has been troubled for some time. It doesn't, regardless of whether it's politically correct or not, which obviously it does not seem to be, they haven't given this gentleman much time.
No, they have not given Mike Ullman much time. Mike Ullman, by the way, was responsible for a stock price that was 4 times the present stock price. So, and Mike was pushed out. The guy who took the stock up 4 times from where it is today was pushed out by none other than, of course, Bill Ackman, who had another candidate, somebody who he had given overly rosy portrait to, this fellow, Ron Johnson, who he had wrongly attributed to the success of the Apple stores to him, and made a mess of things. They, of course, the stock has plummeted. They lost over 1/3 of their of their retail sales. They've massive layoffs. They've driven away their key customers. So it takes Mike some time to rebuild it. You're absolutely right, Sue. An interim has to be given even an interim has to be given some time to fix the ship.
Let me take the other side of the argument for just a moment, Jeff. And here's a company that is clearly troubled. I guess you could make the case that Ackman is being classically disruptive. And sometimes companies in conditions like JCPenney need a disruptor to come in and shake things up.
You can be a dissenter and a disruptor all you want within the confines of the boardroom while you're on that board. But this is not like a municipal city council meeting, or frankly, this is a problem if somebody in Congress thinks they're only representing a narrow constituency and not their full electoral base. As a board member and in Western governance, you have to represent not just Pershing Square investors or Bill Ackman's fancy of the moment, but he has to represent the full base of investors, and you can't have these broadside attacks. If he wants to do it from the outside, fine, or on the inside, critically but confidentially, fine. But you can't sort of have these attacks leaking confidential information. That's That's the breakdown in trust. And he likes these Rosie O'Donnell, Donald Trump slap-down models with getting into the mud, and that doesn't work here. And his preference for Alan Questrom, of all weird things, the former CEO who was a short-term CEO that it's a wonderful retailer, but he's got Foot Locker on his hands as a board member and Men's Warehouse to deal with.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff. Have a great weekend. Jeff Sonnenfeld of the Yale School of Management.
A potential settlement between J.P. Morgan and the Securities and Exchange Commission would require the firm to admit wrongdoing in its handling of the London whale trading loss. It would be a big departure from the longtime practice of banks neither admitting nor denying culpability, and it would be the first admission under the new program that's been spearheaded by SEC Chair Mary Jo White.
Well, back to school, it's one of the most important shopping seasons of the year, and this year shoppers are looking for discounts. So Courtney Reagan hit the outlets to see how high-end retailers are trying to take advantage of bargain hunters.
Retailers may be holding a collective breath, hoping the shoppers are coming soon. This weekend is traditionally a big one for back-to-school shopping, but summer sales haven't inspired confidence that retail's second most important season will be a strong one. July saw weak traffic at traditional malls. Mall-based retailers American Eagle and Aeropostale both warning investors about lower than expected earnings after disappointing sales. While sales and traffic at traditional malls have been somewhat disappointing this summer, it's a different story at the outlets. Here at Woodbury Common Premium Outlet in Central Valley, New York, there are actually lines of shoppers waiting outside to get into some of the stores.
Clearance racks are unbelievable. It's like normal racks at other places.
It's better to get it here than it is to get it at Lord & Taylor's or something else. It's cheaper.
Lord & Taylor competitors Saks and Nordstrom are banking on the outlet boom. Both have more outlet locations than full-line stores and are opening more. Michael Kors is expanding its outlet footprint too.
The value proposition continues to lead. With that, outlets are really the main place you can go. One-stop shop. You've got all the bargains that you can potentially want.
Bargains on designer accessories for back to school. The surge in high-end accessories isn't just happening with adults, it's trickling down to teens.
The teen is looking for a number of on-trend and fairly high price point brands. So it's Michael Kors, Kate Spade, Tory Burch, Calvin Klein. And these brands continue to have a lot of appeal for that teen consumer in accessories.
Looking for a wallet to get for school to go out with.
In Michael Kors, they have bags for 50% off, so they're good. And they're nice bags too.
So much for being excited about fresh #2 pencils for back to school. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Courtney Reagan in Central Valley, New York.
And still ahead, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. When companies bring jobs back to the U.S., the economic benefits extend all the way to Capitol Hill. But first, a look at how the international markets closed today. We start tonight's market focus with a high flyer, a really high flyer. Priceline is just ticks away from becoming the first ever stock in the S&P 500 to trade above $1,000 a share. Investors jumping into the travel booking company following its better than expected earnings, which we told you about last night. Shares were up another 4% today, hitting $9.95 before leveling off. But Wall Street has loved this company for quite a while. The stock is up 3,000% over the last decade. So if you invested $10,000 back in 2003, that would be worth about $300,000. A very different story, though, for shares of Dendreon. They tumbled to a 4-year low after cutting their outlook. The biotech company said sales of its prostate cancer therapy drug, Provenge, will be weaker than expected. That drug, which has a very high price tag, is facing tougher competition from newer drugs. The stock plummeted at 26% today to finish at $3.39.
And yet another company made its trading debut today, several in fact. Cvent, an event management software maker, soared on its first day of trading following in the footsteps of other cloud-based IPOs. Cvent helps customers plan events, venues, and send surveys. Shares priced at $21 and finished the day up 56% to $32.92. 5 other companies hit the street today as well, making it the biggest day for IPOs since May, and here's how they made out. Frank's International, which provides drilling equipment and services to the oil and gas industry, was the best of the rest. It gained nearly 20%. QEP Midstream, Mix Telematics, and Stock Building Supply all showed gains, but storage terminal owner WorldPoint was the only loser in the group.
Pretty rough week for the Dow and the S&P. They fell 4 out of 5 days. Here with his own thoughts on where the market goes from here is David Rolfe, Chief Investment Officer at Wedgwood Partners. Good to see you, David. Welcome.
Thanks, Sue. Glad to be here.
You know, 4 out of 5 days has some people down on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange saying that the big rally is over. Is it over, or is this just the pause that refreshes?
I'm a little nervous here. We're not market timers per se, but this market's been up nonstop, and we're increasingly finding it hard to find true bargains to put in our portfolio. And we typically only own about 20 or 22 stocks, so the pickings are rather slim, at least from our vantage point these days.
Well, let's go to some stocks which our viewers have asked about, beginning with one that sort of meets the sort of description you just had. That's come a long way. Ben writes, would love to hear your opinions about Tesla. The stock has gone up very fast. What does the future hold on Tesla?
Well, I think the future for the car company is terrific. But as it pertains to the current shareholders, I mean, the stock's up 475% in the past year. And a lot has to really go right for the company to make an investment in these shares at current prices, I think, to be an attractive investment. So I think it's a great car, a great potential business, but I think there is so much reflected in the current stock price. I think I would head for different areas right now.
All right, let's move on. And Gregory asks us to please discuss Hain Celestial. What do you think of that?
Same kind of story. I think that the stock has far outperformed what the business can do. It's a great business, but that stock has compounded at about 55% over the past 3 years. And when you look at the current valuation, it's almost 30 times price to free cash flow. I think the stock is well ahead of where the business growth is going to be.
All right, let's go on to Biogen IDEC. Mohan writes, is Biogen IDEC a buy at this price?
I think I'm going to go 0 for 3 today. It's great business, lousy stock. Very similar metrics. Stock's up better than 50% compounded over the last 3 years. A $10,000 investment in these shares at the beginning of 2010 are already up over to $40,000. And again, here's a stock that's on any valuation metric is very, very rich.
So where would you put cash to work right now? You like Apple, you say? Why?
Well, it's been a tough year, no doubt about
Right.
it. We don't think Apple is a broken growth company. We think their ecosystem is alive and well. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel for some new products. In the fourth quarter, it's going to continue into next year. And so 2013 was a year of investing in CapEx, buying back the shares. We think fiscal 2014 is a resumption of growth. And at little more than 10 times earnings, we think the risk reward is very attractive.
And you own the stock, correct?
Yes, we do.
All right. David, thank you. Have a great weekend. David
Thank you.
Rolfe, Wedgwood Partners.
Well, it's not just U.S. companies that are bringing jobs back to the U.S. Some foreign firms are also opening new plants on American soil. Sounds like a win-win. Workers get jobs, corporations get good PR, but they also gain something else, influence in Washington. Eamon Javers is back now to wrap up our special series, Made in America.
One of our major goals has been to make things again in this great state.
North Carolina's moving forward.
We think it's good for our state.
It was a banner day in North Carolina. Lenovo announcing a new manufacturing plant in the town of Whitsett. And as documented in this Lenovo video, all the dignitaries were there to cheer on the company.
Hopefully this is just going to be the start of great things to come.
That's the kind of public relations windfall that companies can count on when they announce new manufacturing jobs here in the United States. But those announcements can be more than just an economic opportunity. They can also be an opportunity to curry favor with political officials here in Washington. In fact, on this webpage, the public relations company working for Lenovo that day boasts that 5 separate political leaders spoke on behalf of Lenovo at the event, and that the firm assisted them in the development of their talking points and messaging for the event. Lenovo, a Chinese computer company, is a firm that can always use some good press with the U.S. government and has sought to sell its products to the military, the State Department, and others.
This year, Apple will start making Macs in America again.
And it's not just foreign companies. Apple CEO Tim Cook scored a coveted seat at Obama's State of the Union speech earlier this year after his company announced it would invest $100 million to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States.
Apple then sought successfully the holy grail of tax avoidance.
That's the kind of intangible Washington goodwill that can come in handy for a company.
So help me God.
Especially when it comes under scrutiny on Capitol Hill for its tax practices a few months later. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Eamon Javers in Washington.
Still ahead, heavy rains and high heat are hurting the country's vegetable crops. Now supply is shrinking, prices are spiking, and you are paying the price. First, let's take a look at commodities, treasuries, and currencies and how they did today. My 7-year-old may be very happy to hear this. You may have an excuse now to not eat your veggies. No siree, Mackie. Farms have been hit by heavy rains, persistent heat, and a plant virus, devastating crops, reducing supply, and causing sticker shock at the supermarket. Tonight, Jane Wells takes a look at the rising price of your leafy greens.
There's a problem in America's largest backyard garden, also known as California.
So you'd see this as opposed to this.
Here in what's often referred to as the nation's salad bowl, there isn't enough lettuce or tomatoes.
We're in a pretty much an unprecedented type of a situation here.
First, the lettuce. Vegetable marketer Mark McBride says iceberg prices are up almost 150% in a year as a perfect storm of weather problems across the nation impacts the crop. And in case you need an excuse to avoid vegetables, look at the price hikes for broccoli, asparagus, cauliflower, and spinach.
Bunch spinach, that was another, since it's very tender nature, really got hit hard by that heat. Where last year we were $8.50 to $9.50, we've been as high as $21, $22 for a 2-dozen carton.
This is a plant that was stung by a sugar beet leafhopper sometime during its productive cycle.
California's billion-dollar tomato industry is facing a longer-lasting problem, a pest-borne virus which destroys plants. 90% of the nation's processed tomatoes come from here.
We've had yields reduced by 70 and 80% in some fields. There are some processors that are estimating that of the 13 million ton crop they've contracted, that we could have a 2 million ton deficit.
Consumers could see prices eventually rise for salsa and spaghetti sauce. Of course, the good thing about vegetables is it doesn't take long to grow more as long as the weather cooperates, and you can always grow your own. For Nightly Business Report, Jane Wells, Los Angeles.
And in California, if you live in Silicon Valley, you're not just paying more for your veggies, you're also coughing up a lot of cash for your house. In the heart of the tech economy, the average price of a home has topped $1 million for 4 straight months. And the tech industry rebound is a big part of the reason why, of course. Prior to this year, the only other time that a single-family home cost that much was right before the housing crash back in 2007. Makes New York look cheap, Ty, doesn't it?
Absolutely. More than $1 million for the median home.
I know. That does it for Nightly Business Report for tonight. Thanks for watching. Susie Garib is back on Monday. And remember to support your public television station.
And on behalf of your public TV station, thank you very much for your support. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you here Monday evening.
Nightly Business Report has been brought to you by
Sailing through the heart of historic cities and landscapes on a river, you get close to iconic landmarks, to local life, to cultural treasures. Viking River Cruises, exploring the world in comfort.
I'm Tyler Matheson with a Nightly Business Report News Brief. The International Trade Commission, a quasi-judicial federal agency, issued a mixed ruling banning the import of some Samsung devices that infringe on 2 Apple patents. It also found no Samsung violations on 4 other Apple patents. Smartphone maker BlackBerry got a big boost today on a report the company is considering going private, but analysts remain skeptical this will ever happen. Shares, though, up nearly 6%. On Wall Street, investors found little reason to buy as the Dow snapped its 6-week win streak, closing at a 1-month low. Volume was light, not just today, but all week, logging the lowest volume week since August of 2006. In the end, the Dow closed down 72 points, the S&P 500 off by 6, NASDAQ also down 6. Be sure to tune in to Nightly Business Report here on your public television station.